Connection Gathering. Inspiring hope, health, and healing. Connecting the dots of your story to transform your life. Connect with us on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Well, welcome to the Connection Gathering this kind of brisk Thursday morning. And my guest today is Ladena Bough. Welcome to the show, Ladena.
Thank you, Jill.
Well, I had the privilege to be on your show yesterday, so we're just switching seats today, aren't we?
Yep, we're just switching sides of the table. See who's in charge.
Well, we're just so grateful that you're here. And so we'd love to begin our show first from a word from one of our amazing sponsors, Holy Hydrogen. And hydrogen water, I've come to find out, is one of the best healing sources for cellular health and healing such things as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, connective tissue disorders, and those who have recovered from cancer. So it's just an amazing product. So we're going to start off with a word from our sponsor where you, the listener, can receive $100 off this amazing product by putting in the promo code ACTS. So listen in now.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the #1 tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code ACTS for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Use code ACTS for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
So thanks so much for listening to that amazing product. And we hope you'll go online today and order your hydrogen machine. So welcome to the show, Ladena. And one of the things we love about the Connection Gathering is we believe that when Jesus walked the face of the earth, he loved to share accounts, parables, and stories so lives could be transformed.
Right.
So if you're willing to share the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Oh my.
take us back to little Ladena growing up as a child and share with us the journey you went on from grammar school, junior high, high school, all the way to who you are today.
It was a long journey. I did not grow up in a friendly household. My mother was quite abusive through the years, verbally and physically and so forth. And I don't know, I was the middle child. So, I was kind of don't know what to do with her type situation. But I was a really good student. I was the only one in my family that I have a brother and a sister. I was the only one that was in honor society, and I actually had the opportunity. I had actually received a full ride scholarship to Juilliard for music, and I turned it down and instead decided to have a child.
Why did you turn it down?
Having a kid.
Okay.
My parents were not going to pay for anything. They would not allow me to move to New York and so forth. So basically, I left home when I was 15 years old and never went back.
Okay. So you got pregnant unexpectedly. And so that's what changed the trajectory of that scholarship.
I had gone through a lot of abuse at the house. There was one time that my mother had my father beat me so bad that I had cuts all the way up and down my back and across my bottom, and they made me sit in a chair to think about what I've done. And it's like, I don't even know what I've done. So that's a little difficult. And I had to call my cousin, that night, and he snuck me out of the house and took me to the hospital and they wanted to keep me, but I wouldn't stay there. And so I stayed with him long enough to heal up. My parents wouldn't allow me to go to school because they didn't want the cops called because of all the bruising and
And the
everything.
hospital didn't call the police on them?
No, I had asked them not to. I was terrified of my
Mhm.
parents. They were just really evil people over the years. So I had a kid, and got married, and that lasted about 3 years.
So you got married at 15?
At 16,
At 16.
yeah.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up. Well, I was born in the Stockton, Missouri area.
Okay.
And then we moved to Kansas City because my father was a truck driver. And
Okay.
so he got on at Safeway and Montgomery Wards. Those were the two places he only worked. He drove forever. So I had my kids. And then I went to a friend of mine taught me how to read court transcripting. She was a court reporter. And there's only 23 keys on that machine, so they use various combinations. So I did court reporting transcripts for I don't know, probably 10 years until the IRS wanted more of my money than I wanted to give them. So I went to work for a law firm instead.
So at 16, though, you left home and lived in Kansas City with your now husband and your first child.
Mm-hmm.
And then from 16 to 18, you were raising the child, and then you went off at 18 and became a court reporter at 18.
Yeah. And I did that for a lot of years, because I was self-employed. But then I went to work for a law firm. And I worked for that. It was a Christian law firm. And I worked there for close to 30 years as a paralegal and office manager there. We did a lot of elder law and probate and, guardianships for disabled kids. Our entire practice really revolved around elders and disabled children,
Mhm.
and it was the one thing that kept me from getting into new bad relationships. I had people I could care for and not have to, because I got divorced and everything. And so it was like, okay, I have this big sign on my head that says all losers apply here.
So take us back a little bit, because you jumped a really fast forward into career. So from 16 to 18, I know on the show I was on yesterday, I had indicated I danced and you said you did. So where did
Yep.
that come into play?
That came into play after my daughter was born. She was born when I was 24. And I was single again. And so I needed to find a way to make more money, because at that point I was only making like $10 an hour as a paralegal. And so a friend of mine said, why don't you come up here and dance? And so I went to a club in Kansas City, Kansas, and I was a dancer there for probably 3 years. But it was amazing because, I could just sit and talk to somebody at the bar, an old man at the bar, and not have to really dance for him or anything. And, I could make $1,500, $2,000 a night.
And you still worked as a court reporter by day and a dancer by night.
Yeah, it was. I even had one client that came in there, and it's like, okay, you never saw me. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how you remember those stories, because I still remember one client that came in. His name was George, and he worked for City Schools of San Diego. And I still remember he drank a scotch and soda, and it was $1.25, and he'd give me a 20.
Yep.
I still remember that, like
And
yesterday.
you always remember the ones that, it's temporarily well,
Yeah.
and I had a thing about wearing hats, so I stood out from everybody else. So I always had some kind of a big hat because I worked as a hat model for a ladies' hat shop one time. And so I was a mannequin standing in the window.
So take us again back. We connect the dots. So somehow we jumped from 16 getting married, having a child, getting married, to 24 being a dancer, and you said you were divorced. So where did the divorce come in, and how many children did you have with that husband, and why did the divorce take place?
My first husband and I, that lasted about 3 years. He was not ready to be a husband. He and his friends liked to drink all night long. They kept a 5-gallon container of tequila sunrise right there. And, because let's see, my son was born in 76. And, about the age of 3, I decided that my son did not need to wake up and see drunk people all over the floor. And so it's like, no, I'm not doing this. And then about that same time, my mother and my father were arguing and fighting back and forth. And so my mother moved in with us and my sister moved in with us. And it's like, okay, these are the 2 people I cannot tolerate in life whatsoever, but whatever. I'm a good daughter. So I let them come in and they never would leave. And so it's like, okay, fine. I'm leaving. I'm taking my kid. So my mother and my sister stayed. When I was 23, I got remarried. And
And where did you meet?
I was living up in Parkville, Missouri, and my next door neighbor decided I was lonely. And so she set me up on a blind date with her nephew.
Okay.
And he just died a few weeks ago. He has had ALS, but, it was amazing. We had a really good relationship there for a while, but then he was a very physically abusive guy. He broke my arm at one point.
Mm.
He would knock me down. He'd take the truck and, he wrecked my truck twice. He took my Thunderbird to Topeka and burned all my seats and stuff. And it was like, okay, this is crazy because he was a major alcoholic. And then he got really into drugs and so forth. And so it's
Now,
like,
did you have children with him?
I have one daughter.
So you had one daughter with the first husband and
One son with
one
the first
son,
husband.
one son, I'm sorry, and then a daughter with the second husband.
Yes.
And how long did that marriage last?
She was probably 5 when we divorced. So I was about 29 at that point. And
So
but
you continued to marry your father and your mother.
yes, I did. It was horrible.
Yeah. We repeat those patterns that we're so familiar with, don't we, Ladena?
Yeah, it's just horrible the way you do that. And, I finally got to the point where it's like, this is not my life. I did not sign up for this. My kids and I are we were amazing. We love each other. We tell each other we love each other every day. Except my son now, he died in 2019.
What happened there?
He had a major heart attack. He could have lived. But he had gone to get some stuff at McDonald's that morning, was going home for the Chiefs game, major Chiefs fan. And he was feeling sick, so he pulled into a Family Dollar store parking lot and started to get out of the truck and fell back into the truck. And the people inside saw what was going on and they never called the police. And it was like 4 hours later, they called the police and
So
said,
they thought he was probably drunk or something, and
yeah.
they didn't think it was a heart attack, I'm assuming.
But by the time the ambulance got there and everything, because they called the police and said, there's a guy in his truck out here, the truck's still running, somebody needs to come out here. And so he was dead by that point. And my daughter and I spent 2 days trying to figure out where he was. And
How old was he?
He was 43.
Wow.
But
And you did an autopsy, and it was heart failure.
yeah.
Wow.
And
now, was he a drinker or smoker? Heavy smoker?
when he smoked, but not real heavy, and he was just getting ready to go in for a heart scan, and he died before they could get him in there to do that. And but it really irritated me because when I was working for the law firm, the one I stayed at for almost 30 years, we rented our parking lot to a bar at night. And when I came in the morning, if I found people passed out in the alley or hanging out of their car or whatever, I immediately went to check on them. And people just don't seem to care anymore. Nobody even went out and checked on him or called the ambulance or did anything.
They just assumed he was drinking when he hadn't been.
Yeah. All he had sitting there was a cup of coffee and some McDonald's breakfast.
Wow. How sad. I'm so sorry for your loss. So you have your daughter still with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a nurse in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's got three children. My son never had any children. So she's got three children. One is my mini me. She very good in school and did wonderfully, and she has A+ scholarships and is attending college at this point. She's going to be a cardiac sonographer. She's going to do, uh,
Mhm.
like
And I'm
sonogram.
sure you're a great grandma. Those
Oh yes,
grandkids, you
of
spoil
course.
rotten, of course.
Yeah, the other two, they're different. They have both of them are autistic,
Mm.
and they just found out on my granddaughter. She's 16 now. She'll probably never leave home. She doesn't talk to people. That's one of the goals in her IEP is at least talk to one teacher a day. That was her number one goal. They want her to talk to a
Mm.
teacher because she doesn't want to talk to anybody, and she doesn't want to drive. What she would like to do is go to a deaf school and learn to do sign language interpretation for doctor's offices and stuff. She taught herself sign language years ago, and so that's the way she communicates with people when she chooses to. And
Well,
then,
I'll have to put a link on the page here for a product in a company that I'm aware of. It's called Amari Global, the mental wellness company.
mhm,
And I'll put that link in for people that might have children with autism because they've created an amazing product. Actually, they won the Nutra Award their first year out the door as the best finished organic product for gut, brain, heart health.
mhm,
And one of the things they're finding now with autism is in ADD is gut, brain, heart health is not synced together.
yeah,
So they've actually seen they can't make medical claims because no one can when it's not FDA, evidenced. But again, FDA wants to say this about this and this about that, that who knows if any of it's true. So, but the product has really helped. And the one man I know, his daughter has cerebral palsy,
mhm,
and when she went on these nutrients, she went from her brain seizing, 15 times a day, even on anti-seizure medicine, to 2 seizures a week, a
wow,
week. And she didn't change her meds.
mhm,
So I'll definitely link that. That might be something to try. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but it could have some magnificent healing powers. And you
yeah.
never know.
Yeah, and my grandson, we knew he was autistic early, and but he's amazing. He has a bug out bag for every situation in the world that's going to come. He wants to build a bunker at my house so we all have some place to get in. He's got a bag for a zombie apocalypse. He's got a bag for World War III. He's got.
So and what about the third?
My third granddaughter, Harley, she's like I say, she's in college. She's
Mm-hmm.
got really good grades. She's got scholarships. She took a lot of her college courses while she was still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So never figured out what happened to the other two, but they're cool.
Same father.
No, three fathers.
Okay, so different, different
Yeah.
genetics there. So going back, let's again connecting the dots of story. Let's go back, if we could, to that time from the second husband, 24-ish, after the alcoholism and him being alcoholic and the abuse that you were going through. So how did you personally cope through that all? Because many times our coping mechanisms are either we become perfectionists, we numb out with food, either minimizing our food or overeating, either undereating, overeating, excessive exercise. We may fall into sexual activities or drugs or alcohol. We do something to cover up all that abuse and pain. So, how did you cope?
I was a workaholic.
Workaholism was yours.
Yeah, I was a workaholic. I would go to the law firm that I was working at. Like I say, it was a Christian law firm. We had Bible studies every Tuesday morning and so forth. But for the most part, I worked. I had, you know, disabled clients that I absolutely adored. And so, I'd spend my time trying to make sure that they had what they needed. And, if their parents died, they weren't going to lose all their benefits and everything and then have to reapply for things of that nature. And then on top of that, my kids never brought home dogs and cats. My kids brought home kids.
Stray kids.
Yeah, I found that a lot of people in the world, for some reason, they would just kick their kids out when they're 13, 14, 15 years old with clothes on their back and say, go. And so I took in kids, and I would have anywhere from, 3 or 4 or all the way up to 12 kids in my house
Wow.
on top of my own. And they were all my kids, and every one of them left the house with a high school diploma. There was 90 of them before it was all over with.
Wow.
Yeah, so I just had a parade of people, and they used to answer my phone going, Rainbow House, Green speaking.
Wow. That's amazing. So again, you didn't get into drug addiction or alcoholism or anything like that, or eating disorders that you were aware of
No,
at all.
I drank too much when I was dancing just because I had to be semi-drunk in order to get up there.
Yeah.
But I always managed to get home in one piece. So I didn't drink enough to get to where I couldn't drive.
Yeah.
But I always, the thing that saved me was the kids. I refused to allow a child to go without a roof over their head or clothing, or and do not kick a child out and think that they can make it in life without a high school diploma.
Mm-hmm.
I had one boy, he came to live with me when he was like 14, and his mother lived across the street, and she moved away and left him. So it's like, okay, I don't know how you people do this. You can't do this to a child.
Wow.
So that was my escape. I took in kids, and it didn't matter, black, white, Mexican, Oriental, whatever the case may be. They just bring them home, and they're like, "Hey, mama," and so every one of
Wow.
them calls me mama, and I still communicate with every one of them, and they come around, and then. After my kids graduated high school and stuff, they weren't bringing home anybody else. So then I ended up taking care of girls who were in abusive situations.
Mm-hmm.
I used my law firm training to help them get protective orders, or help them
For
get a divorce.
domestic violence and stuff.
Yeah, and help them go through a divorce if that's what they need. Um, you know, as a Christian, you wonder about doing divorces, and people have questioned my helping these girls, and it's like, no, the Lord did not say you have to be a punching bag for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I will help them get a divorce.
Well, and there's two parts of the Bible that says about divorce: desertion and abandonment. And when you're being abused, the marriage has been abandoned, and
Hmm.
you've got desertion there too. With, when someone's an alcoholic and they're passed out every single day and night, you deserted the relationship.
Yeah, if you're going out with your friends every night and you have no concern about these twin babies at the house
Yeah.
and so forth, or you're bringing in drug dealers and drug addicted people and so forth, that's no way to raise a child. A
No.
child should never be in that kind of an environment.
No. And you saw that firsthand. So take us back to when you met your third husband. And
Yes.
where did that take place?
I was in my garden.
In your garden, okay.
I was
He
planting.
was a flower. He was the gardener, that handsome gardener that was cleaning the pool. No, I can envision it now.
Well, I had this big garden at that point, and I was outside planting plants and everything. And he drove by with his boss, and he's like, "Who's that?" And he says, "Oh, that's a Boo girl," and she just moved in there. Her dad owned that place. It's Benny Boo's niece, because they did the road crew out there, and my uncle Benny is a road boss.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next thing I knew, I had retired from the law firm because I had 5 carpal tunnel surgeries and so forth. And the work comp people said, "We can't keep you around here. You got to go do something else."
Mm.
So I ended up on disability, and my dad died about that point. So I said, okay, heck, I got a $2,500 a month house payment in Belton, or I've got a $250 a month house payment in Stockton. So I packed up and I moved
To Stockton.
And so I was in the garden, and I was doing a little bit of work as a bartender at the Ambets there in Stockton. And this guy drove by, and Tom told him who I was. And the next thing I knew, they kept showing up at the bar where I was tending the bar and playing pool. And so we were together for close to 20 years. And then he committed suicide November the 12th.
I'm so sorry. And can you share a little bit about why you believe he took his life?
Well, he ended up with COPD, emphysema, and he was on oxygen 24 hours a day. He hadn't left the house in about 2.5 years, and he was one who always, went out visiting people and went to auctions and everything. And he had taken care of 4 of his friends who had COPD and emphysema, and he watched them lay and suffocate. And he had told me when they got the diagnosis, he says, "I will not lay in this house and suffocate." And he'd been on hospice for about 6 months, and he'd gotten to the point where he couldn't really leave the bedroom except to take a breathing treatment. And he had to, like, 8 steps from the bed to the table where his breathing treatment was, and he had to stop and rest for about 5 minutes before he could do his breathing treatment. And so that day he was in the bedroom, and I took my dog outside to go to the bathroom because we were talking, and I said I'd be back in a few minutes. And next thing I knew, I heard a gunshot in the bedroom, and he shot himself in the head. But he had.
And you're never prepared for that. Even if someone tells you, I'm not going to live through this suffocation. And you never
Right.
know what that really means
Yeah.
until it actually occurs.
Well, he had told me and my granddaughter's mother and his son. He says, you'll come home one day, and I'll be in the garage, and I'll be dead. And I didn't really think about it, and I didn't think he'd do it in the bedroom, because he couldn't get out of the house anymore. It'd been 2.5 years since he'd been able to get out of the house.
So it's not like he could just get in the car and go somewhere else. So he did it in the place that he could actually be in, which was
Right.
so traumatic.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, I couldn't register what was going on. It was the opening day of deer season, and it sounds like a war zone around my house that time of year. Everybody out there is deer hunting. There's 200 Amish out there with guns.
Yeah. So so a gunshot is not unusual, but the time of day was.
Yeah, it was right at dark, and it's like, okay, if somebody's hunting this time of night, they're illegal. And then I thought, well, no, it's too close to the house.
And the sound was too close inside the house.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, maybe he got up and decided to shoot a possum on the back porch or something, because I'd been shooting baby possums. Don't judge me, okay? They're horrible around animals.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe he'd done that. And then I looked, and it's like, no, the bedroom door's closed. He didn't do that. And so I opened the bedroom door, and the place was full of gun smoke. And
Wow.
he was laying in the bed, still gasping for air. And that was a horrible night, because then the police showed up, and they decided they were going to call the ambulance and try to resuscitate him. And I'm going, here's his do not resuscitate. Do not do this. And he said, nope, this is now a crime scene.
Did they make you go outside like they were first making sure it wasn't you that did it?
Yeah.
Because I remember that when my brother-in-law died, and I had to go outside, and they wouldn't let me in the house, and they were doing a whole, the fingerprinting and stuff, just to make sure it wasn't murder.
Yeah, they didn't kick me out of the house, but they kicked me out of my bedroom. And so I had an Amish girl that came down, and then my former son-in-law, he came over, and then my daughter and her current fiance, they all came down from Kansas City. And so we spent from about 6 o'clock in the evening when he shot himself till almost 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to get the ambulance people and the police and all these other people out of the house. And then the coroner came, and the assistant coroner came, and then the funeral home came. It was a very long night.
Long night.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your vulnerability. We're going to pause for just a moment here and show Ladena's bio, and we've attached your Facebook page and LinkedIn to that bio. Should anyone want to connect with you personally, if anyone's gone through a loved one, committing suicide and the grief you go through, if anyone's gone through domestic violence or the loss of a child like her son, reach out. And, that's the beauty of connecting today. So this is, well, like we just had Ladena's bio that came up. So, Ladena, we're coming. We got a little bit longer here, about 10 more minutes. So, bring us now. So, through all this journey of everything you've gone, the one part I think that we missed on a little bit is, when did you come personally to a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? I know you said this law firm did Bible studies and stuff, but
Mhm.
when do you remember yourself coming into a personal relationship with Christ?
Well, my first encounter and wanting to get baptized and doing everything was 13. And the pastor came to my house to talk to my mother. And as soon as he left, my mother just laid into me and slapped me around and said, "Don't bring those people to my house. Why are you doing this?" So it's
How
like,
did you meet them though? Because
I was going to vacation Bible school.
so your mom allowed you to go
Yeah, she allowed us to go. She wanted us to go to
just to get you out of
vacation
the
Bible.
house.
Yeah, we were
But
gone then.
yeah, get you out of the house, go to vacation, but then don't bring anyone here
Yeah,
to try to save our soul.
yeah,
If you want to
do
get your
nothing.
soul saved, do it out there. Just don't bring it in.
Yeah, don't bring it in my house.
Okay.
And so, it's like, okay, fine. And I had my own personal relationship with the Lord then, but I could not go get baptized. And, she didn't want us to go to church weekly. Well, after my second marriage, I was at the law firm and I found a really good church that I liked in Kansas City.
Mhm.
And so I took my kids there, and they were having a wonderful relationship with the Lord. They both got baptized. I got baptized finally. And, at that point, it was full on Christ. And, I didn't look back to anything else. It's like, okay, he's already forgiven me of all the crazy stuff I've done through the years. And so I could move on from there. And then when I came back to Stockton, my uncle was pastoring the Independence Church there in Stockton. And he was getting really, really old and tired. And so he asked me to take over. And so I took over the church there, and I'm still in charge of the church. We've had some issues with people breaking into our church, and they busted out all our windows and everything like that at one point. And luckily, the people from Acts came up and helped me get the church all secured back again.
And this is in Stockton?
Yes.
This is where, and so Stockton is where you reside now, is
Yes.
that, so when you left and you left the $2,500 a month to the 200, you went out to the farm, right? And
Yep.
and that's where you live today with animals and land.
I've
And
got 80 acres there, and I raise Scottish Highland cattle. And, I love my life now, and it's quiet. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And I always say that Stockton time is different from anywhere else. And I found the perfect picture one day whenever a Amish man came by with hidden. He was in a covered wagon, and his horses coming by my house. And I took a picture and I said, "Heather, this is what Stockton time means," okay? Because she could never figure out Stockton time. I said, it's really slow and we get no rush about anything.
wow, a whole different life.
Hmm.
So what does life feel like? I mean, it's just been a short time. What was the date of your husband's passing again?
November the 12th.
So right before Thanksgiving. So November. So we're just coming up to not even 2 months yet.
Right.
So how have you worked through some of the grief, or have you not even started? Truthfully on that.
I don't think I really felt that much grief because I knew he was going to heaven. He loved the Lord. His parents were both, wonderful people and loved the Lord. And I mean, he was raised, his father was a pastor. Um, he took a bad way out, but I don't think the Lord will judge him for that in any fashion. He was sick. It was a sick mind that would go and shoot yourself. And so I know where he's at, and it hasn't really bothered me too much. I guess it did for a little bit because I spent 38 days cleaning my house.
So that's where I was going to connect the dots, because the workaholism, the numbing out,
Yes,
came into play.
I spent 38 days from the time I got out of bed till I went to bed at night cleaning my house.
Is it done yet?
Oh yeah, I finally finished it.
It's done now.
I
So
couldn't-
now that it's done, okay, this is the question, Ladena. Okay, because we want to help people to transform their life. So, just to say, okay, yes, he went to heaven. We know that there's no grief. That we know that there's 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, acceptance, all these things. So it sounds like you went right into acceptance mode.
I was angry for a couple of days.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you do this here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
denial could come in at some point where you're like he's really gone. Like, so I've had 2 friends lose their husbands in the last 60 days, and they said they've experienced that denial of like, where is he? Like, is he really gone? Am I really alone? It's like, it's almost like a deja vu. You wake up and almost like Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray, you wake up and it's like, wow, he's not here anymore. Like, I used to take care of him every single day. And that void is gone in your life.
Yeah. Well, I have wonderful grandchildren that live close to me. They've gone Amish.
Okay.
So, whenever I get too awfully bad and depressed and so forth, I just drive down the road and get me baby snuggles.
I can tell you, I get that, because I could be in the worst of the worst of the worst depression, because I still come in and out of that occasionally. And if I see my grandkids, nothing in the world phases me. Like, nothing. It's like, get around my little babies, and I call them babies, but they're like 6, 8, and 10 now, but they're still my grandma's babies, and everything changes, isn't it?
Yeah, because we have my stepson. He was a drug addict, a very bad drug addict, and he finally went through Hope Homes to the Ozarks, and he's doing very well now. Well, while he was still a drug addict, this one girl had gone out at the Amish and became English. There's only 2 classes, Amish and English. And she was English for about 12 years. And she got with my stepson and ended up pregnant. So she has an 8-year-old daughter now. And she took, since my stepson flaked out, she took the girl and went back to being Amish and went back to her Amish husband and so forth. And Isabella just loves being Amish. Wow. And she goes to the 1-room schoolhouse for the Amish kids and so forth. And then June of last year, the mother was pregnant again by her husband. And so we were trying to get her to the hospital that day because the midwife wasn't going to make it. And so we were driving down the road, and then all of a sudden she said, we got to stop. And I said, okay, fine. I told her husband, I said, get out and hold her up. And I told her, I said, get out, squat like an Indian. And we delivered her baby on the side of the highway. So wow. he is now my baby.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, we're coming to the end of the show here. So before we close off, I just would, like to thank you so much. Both of us having our shows here at X Media, we say hi for like 3 minutes, and neither one of us have had the privilege of getting to know each other like we have the last 2 days. So it's been an honor for me to get to know your life story a little bit more. And we're really hoping, everyone, that you've listened to this amazing story. And please remember in life to look for similarities in people's story with your own instead of the differences. And that's where true transformation comes. Yeah. God has a way of bringing us full circle together for the purpose of healing.
Yeah. And God has a way of bringing me people that need healing.
Yes.
I'm the one that goes out and talks to the homeless people or the drug addicted people and, tell them I love them, hug them in the grocery store, whatever. Don't neglect those people. They need you.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. In closing, we just want to get to one last important thing. X Media Broadcasting, was brought together for unity in Christ and to minister to the world.
Right.
And none of this is done as paid. You know, the employees here, the hosts of the shows, we are not paid. We do it, excuse me, for ministry purposes only. But in order for this to survive, we rely on you, the listener. We have to pay rent and electric bills and broadcasting studio fees. So what we need is your support. And we're at the beginning of 2023, and we know that life is tough right now for lots of people. So if you could afford $5, $10, if your budget could afford 100, our needs for 2023 are 20,000 to get us through the year. So if we could possibly get there the first month of January, it would take a lot of stress off the ministry. So if you go to the website, and you know the website address better than me, we're going to show it. What's the web?
axmediagroup.com.
axmediagroup.com, where you'll see a button that says donate, and there is a link with PayPal that you can utilize cash and or credit card. So if you'd be so willing to go there today and support the ministry, you will bless not only yourself and others, but the world, and inspire hope, health, and healing. So thank you. We have an amazing guest coming on next week. So stay tuned for next Thursday and join us again on the Connection Gathering. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The Connection Gathering. Thanks for joining us, connecting unity in Christ through the Holy Spirit. AMG Broadcasting thanks you for being a faithful listener, supporter, and sponsor. Help to keep our programs on the air, support us, and donate today. To donate, please go to axmediagroup.com. Subscribe to our channels now and don't miss any episodes. The Axe Media AMG Broadcasting YouTube and Rumble channels are below. Please like our social media sites also.